Okay, let's talk about Harry Potter debug mode. Now, there's plenty of other information out there, other guides, but as far as I'm concerned, none of them really do the debug mode justice. I mean, it's a really fun mode to use, but it's kind of difficult with a lot of these guides that I've seen to figure out how to do things. It's kind of confusing. And plus, plenty of the information out there just seems to plain be wrong. So I've had years of experience using this debug mode. Yes, years. So if anyone's a definitive expert in this debug mode, it's probably me. And I've learned tons of tips and tricks, and I just want to consolidate them all into this video and show you what I know to be true and that you can do in the debug mode. It's a lot of fun, but it can be a bit difficult to grasp at first. With all that said, here's my definitive guide to Harry Potter debug mode in the Sorcerer's Stone game, just to be clear. Now, since this is comprehensive and I don't want people to be confused, what is the debug mode? Okay, so you can play the normal Harry Potter game, that's all fun and good, but what you might not have known is that you can access a debug mode, and in this mode you can essentially use cheats and other things in the game. And this is like the thing that the developers used while they were making the game to test it and stuff like that to debug it, as you would probably guess. But like I said, this is something that you can easily use yourself. Alright, now here's the most crucial part of the guide that might be difficult for you to figure out, and it was for me at least. How do you get in the debug mode? Now basically, all you need to do is be in a level, like jumping around as Harry, whatever. That's when you're allowed to enter the code to enter debug mode. But you need to be very particular with how you enter the code and not mess anything up, otherwise you'll just keep entering it and it won't work. Even after years, there are some times where it's still difficult for me to get in debug mode. Now when you're entering this code, keep in mind that even though you're pressing like the letter keys and things like that, and you may have that mapped to some controls for Harry, don't worry if Harry's moving around, that's not going to mess with the code at all. And also, for all codes to come, do not worry about capital letters. Alright, let me just say the code. Harry debug mode on. Keep in mind there's no spaces, so what you do is you type in these letters on the keyboard in sequence, and then you'll get debug mode on. Now that seems easy enough, but here's the thing about it. You need to press all of these in sequence, so no extra letters in there. However, there's a timing aspect to all this that makes it kind of difficult, so I'm not entirely sure about the timing, but the best way to explain it is basically every 1 to 2 seconds, the system that's looking for codes resets. So if you type in the word Harry and then you wait 2 seconds, then the system that is looking for the code is going to reset. So you would have to retype in Harry for it to work. So you need to do it in sequence and not have any significant gaps in the keys that you're pressing. And also keep in mind that you need to have that reset at the beginning of the code sequence as well. So you need to wait 2 seconds before you actually start entering it, just to be sure. Now as soon as you press that last N in the code, it should work immediately. If the debug mode is indeed on, you'll see in the top left corner there's some weird green characters. Now you can usually ignore these things. It shows some interesting stuff, like if Harry gets hit or if you're jumping around, it'll have stuff related to that show up there. It also says like certain actors or whatever are moving around in the level. It can be interesting at times, but you don't really need to pay much attention to it. So there's a vast array of different cheats that you can use in debug mode. To help you understand how you access a lot of these, I felt it useful to divide the cheats into 4 different categories. Now, the names for these categories are sequence cheats, debug access cheats, debug cheat codes, and B cheats. Now, the great thing about sequence cheats is I've already told you how to do them. You know the particular rules that you had to abide by when entering Harry debug mode. That's essentially sequence cheats. And keep in mind that you actually don't need debug mode to be on for these. but I figured I might as well go through with debug mode first. Now there's two different jumping cheats that you can do. There's Harry Super Jump and Harry Normal Jump. Harry Normal Jump is actually quite a big jump. Harry will jump up way more than he would normally. Harry Super Jump is an insane jump that can throw you way across the map to another place. If you can aim this properly, which is unlikely, you can do quite interesting skips with it. And then the last sequence code is Harry gets full health. And this does exactly what you would think. If you enter this correctly, Harry's health will just automatically go up to the full amount. Next up is debug access cheats. And this is essentially things that you get automatically just by being in debug mode. By the way, when you're in debug mode, there is only one way that you will ever get out of debug mode. It doesn't matter if you exit the level, it doesn't matter if you die, it doesn't even matter if you've turned off the game, because when you restart it, you will still be in debug mode. The only way you get out of debug mode is if you press F7. When you do that, the green letters in the top left will go away, and then you're not in debug mode anymore. Now along this line, when you press F2, F3, or F4, it will take you and teleport you to specific locations in that particular level. And it always takes you to the same ones anytime you press it. If you press F5, then it will cycle through these different locations. Although it is worth noting that sometimes there are some levels that have more than 3 locations that it teleports to. So F2 to F4 will teleport to 3 specific locations, but F5 will cycle through and go to some other locations as well. When you press F8 in debug mode, it will change the camera angle. So this could change it so that it's like a boss setting or a top-down view or a reverse view. There's a lot of different things. There's even one that allows for a cutscene view where the camera angle only points to Harry. I don't know why you would use this, but yeah. When you press F11, this will show you all the collectibles you have, so like fire seeds, challenge stars. Now while you're in debug mode, you don't need to wait around. Whenever you're in a cutscene, you can just hold down the spacebar and it'll zoom right through that. Of course, it'll stop if they change the scene or whatever, and you'll have to repress the spacebar, but it gets you going through those really fast. And at the beginning and end of the game, you of course have those long storybook sections, but in debug mode, you'll notice that there is a next page button that you can press, and when you press this, it of course goes to the next page. However, there is like a delay before you're allowed to go to the next page. It's like a second or whatever, so just keep clicking it and you'll eventually get to the next page. When you go to the main menu, you will get 3 new options. The first one is level select, which is pretty much what you expect. You get a long list of all the levels and you can choose any one you want to go to. There is one level that's not listed here. It's this really tiny level that's practically worthless between the dungeon and the troll, but it's not there, so whatever. Also, while you're in debug mode and skipping around in levels like this, just keep in mind that save files won't be altered in any way. Basically, you just keep this constant state of Harry, so if you get a certain amount of beans in one level and you jump to another level somewhere else in the game, then you'll still have those same beans. The second new main menu option you get is language, which has nothing to do with choosing languages as you might think. It's just a list of literally all of the dialogue in the entire game.
In the last match against well done! You've got enough every flavour beans.
Including some things that didn't even make it into the game that I guess they just didn't end up using. So it takes a long time to go through, but it can be interesting looking through them. And the third option is credits, and who cares? Alright, now we get to the third set of cheats, the debug mode cheat codes. Now, when you want to enter a cheat code, what you'll have to do is press the tittle key on your keyboard, which is in the top left, and a little squiggly line thing. This will bring up a menu in which you'll be able to type in cheat codes. You also notice in this menu as well, it'll keep track of the cheat codes you enter, but it also has previous things that it's like stuff going on in the game. But of course, I never use this because only losers use the tittle key cheat code command menu. There's like pretty much no reason to use it unless you want to keep track of what you've done. What I personally use is the tab button. Now when you press this, you'll get a new prompt in the lower left corner, which has the same green characters as you see in the top left. And here, while you're in that menu, you won't be able to control Harry or anything. Either you press the tab key to escape it, or you press enter to put in a code. The great thing about these cheat codes is that unlike the sequence cheat codes, you don't have to worry about any sort of timing or doing things in the right order. As long as you have the correct thing in there, like you deleted and backspaced and redid things and stuff, as long as you press enter and you have the correct thing in there, it's going to work. So the first cheat code for this is give all cards. Now give all cards does you what you would think, except not really, because it only gives 24 of the 25 wizard cards. It doesn't give you the last one that you need, like beat Voldemort and have 250 beans for. The next cheat is give house points. Now this only gives house points to Gryffindor. Other house points are merely affected by how many Gryffindor has. So you can literally never beat Slytherin, by the way, because they will always have more house points than Gryffindor. I don't care if you give them 1,000,000 points, it's not going to happen. Now the way this works is after you type in give house points, you need a space, and then you put the number in, so like 12 or 2,000,000. You can also have negative numbers as well if you choose to do that. The next one is give beans, which works just like give house points. You have a space and then the number of beans that you want to give. Of course, it can be negative as well. Any number of beans you want to give, or house points for that matter, is fine. It doesn't really matter. And in that same vein is give seeds, which has a space after it and then that number. These are the fire seeds, by the way. And the final cheat code is set friction, which works just like give beans, give seeds, and all that, in which you say friction and then you put a number. But this time you can use decibels, and probably should if you're playing around with it. Now the default friction is 10, so if you want to change it, you need to set it higher or lower than that. When you set the friction lower to like 1 or something, you'll notice you're sliding around quite a bit. However, if you go to decibels, or if you just want to go all the way to 0, then that's when you're going to have Harry sliding around a whole heck of a lot, only to be like stopped by a wall or something likely. By the way, if you try negative friction, as far as I can tell, that's just 0 friction, so he doesn't like go accelerating or something like that. Now, concerning the friction in this game, might as well not even be there. I mean, like, Harry doesn't go sliding around to begin with. You would think that putting the friction up to a much higher level would basically change nothing. But surprisingly, if you put it up high enough, like above 100, Harry is going to start shaking all around. He's just having such a difficult time walking on the ground and getting too much friction, I guess, that he's slowed down tremendously. Now, interestingly enough, I literally just found this out today, looking at friction again, but you will notice that some of the enemies and other people in the game are actually affected by the same friction as Harry. So if you change there to be no friction, some of them will be sliding around a bit. You won't always notice this, since when people are walking around, they're kind of not affected by friction too much. But it's kind of interesting. You can check out some of the enemies that are affected by this as well. Alright, now, finally, we get to the Big Daddy. The best cheats, arguably, at least ones that you can get a lot of mileage out, the B cheats. Now you enter B cheats in just like you do with other cheat codes, except you have to first enable them with a specific code. Alright, so the thing you have to type is set space engine dot player pawn space B cheats enabled space true. Now that's quite a lot, but you know, something I have not seen anywhere else mentioned is that you don't actually need to type out all of that. You can, but you can completely get rid of the engine dot part of it. Just say set player pawn B cheats enabled true. You will save so much time if you do not type that out. You'll thank me later if you're like me and you've typed this in hundreds of times. Now the thing about enabling B cheats is that you have to do this every single time a level is loaded. So whether you died or you selected a new level or you just proceeded to the next level, you'll have to retype this in order to use B cheats. So that makes it pretty annoying, and you'll again be glad that you don't have to type out quite as much. And a handy trick that you can use with any of the cheat codes is that if you press the up key while you're in that prompt to enter the cheat codes, it will bring you to the previous one that you entered. So you can keep pressing up until you find the last time you entered in the big B cheats enabling thing, and you won't have to type it again just because it'll automatically be filled in for you. Alright, now before we get into the B cheats, just in case you were wondering, there are no A cheats, so don't bother. Alright, now that we got that out of the way, to the B cheats. So the first one we have is set speed, which works exactly like set friction, where you enter in a number right after set speed. The default speed is 1. So this can also be a decimal if you want him to go really slow. If you do negative numbers, it's going to kind of work like positive numbers, except Harry might stop and start. It's weird. And when you do larger numbers, then Harry just goes super fast. The thing you have to keep in mind, of course, is that he has a set acceleration, so he can only get so fast before he hits a wall, but still, it's pretty impressive. And lastly, we have 3 related B cheats that essentially only act as one cheat, but this one cheat is the most used cheat for me. There's walk, fly, and ghost. Now walk is basically a state exactly like Harry normally is. He's just jumping around walking essentially. And then fly and ghost are different states, and if you're in one of those states and you do walk, then you can go back to normal Harry moving around. So fly is basically an inferior version of ghost. So what you do is you fly around. You move just like you do normally with the arrow keys, but it's sort of like a strafing side to side thing. And if you press the spacebar, you can go up higher. Now there's no button directly that you can press to go down lower. The way you go down lower is either by going back to walk and just falling, or by steering your flight by using the mouse to go in different directions. Now that's all well and good, but here I have the best cheat for last, in my opinion. Now Ghost essentially controls just like Fly. However, the main difference is you can now phase through objects and go anywhere in the map. You can't get hurt by enemies. You can collect beans for some weird reason. But yeah, it just gives you total freedom to go wherever you want. You can go to completely different rooms that you're not allowed to go to except in cutscenes and other things like that. Find new rooms that you don't even know why they're there. A bunch of cool stuff. Now, it is a lot more dangerous than flying, I would say. I would highly recommend against ever using the mouse to control how you fly around, because essentially it messes up your camera entirely. Your best bet for going down is without a doubt using the walk command. Now, of course, if you are desperate and you did go too high in the map, you can move the mouse to go down lower, but just be warned, it's probably going to mess things up. One of the weird dangers about using Ghost that I don't even quite understand when it works and when it doesn't is that sometimes when you go through doorways where it's a new section that Harry's getting to, the game might crash as soon as you get there. I can't explain it very well, but it might happen. Also, wherever you're flying and there's basically nothing there, that it's solid rock or whatever you want to call it, that there's no air, it's just unfilled parts of the map, do not use the walk command there. Because when you do, basically the game doesn't like it because Harry's in a place that he can't exist. And while he's in this place, if you try moving around at all, it'll just crash the game. If this does happen, your best bet is to go back into Ghost mode and you'll be allowed to move around again. The thing is, though, that Harry essentially disappears, so if you try moving around by this point, then you'll notice Harry is essentially invisible. So if you don't want to see Harry at all, then this is your way of doing it, I guess. Also, one useful tip when you're ghosting around is that you'll notice that Harry moves faster than the camera is able to keep up with him. You can solve this just by going to one of the other camera modes by like pressing F8. Some of them are much better able to keep up with Harry. So you'll probably want to do this unless you want to see Harry way in the distance and you have no idea where he's going. Alright, so now that we finally covered all the codes, I think it's the perfect time to go over the codes that don't actually exist. So look at all these codes. As far as I have thoroughly tested all of them, none of them work. These are listed on all sorts of websites as cool Harry Potter codes that you can use, but I have never been able to make these work. I don't know if I'm missing something, but since none of these sites are as thorough as I've been with this guide, I highly doubt anyone has been able to make these work. By all means, try them, but just don't expect them to do anything. Okay now, all the cheats that I've supplied you with should be more than enough to keep you entertained for hours and hours. I could go on and on about like little quirks with these cheats and things like that, stuff that I've found, but I don't know, that would be like a really long video series or something, so I doubt I'll do that. So, you watched this far into the video, so I guess you're interested in all this. So I have at the end here what I guess I would call an advanced section for this sort of stuff. You will notice that the video quality and information I'm providing has drastically gone down in this section. Be prepared for still images and looping video. But that's just because I don't have as much experience in this stuff, but I have dabbled in it, so at least I figured I have to say something about it. Okay, so there is one last B cheat that I didn't go over because it is way more advanced than anything else here. So this B cheat is cause event. And shout out to this YouTuber because this is the only way I even know about this thing existing, so here you go. Now cause event, you can do it just like all the other cheat codes we've been discussing. And basically after cause event you put a space and then you do the name of the event. So in this case, this event is Grand Hall Doors, you see at the beginning of the game here. And well, you know the doors have opened because the door opening is an event. And you can see this other event I do, Mom Dis 2. And that like has these students suddenly spawn and run through the door. You'll remember this if you like have seen the opening intro. So there's all sorts of interesting things like that. Here we can see footage of being able to open Fred and George and their secret passages and stuff like that. But this poses a question. How do you even find the name of these events? Okay, so there's one way of doing this. In the tilde menu thing, you can see all the things that happen in cutscene. Like, let's take a look at that. You can see like a cutscene starting here, and also there's stuff like the camera moving around, as well as the animation for Harry to adjust his glasses at the end of him talking to Dumbledore here. And you'll also be able to see these trigger things. So you can see a trigger here for Mom Dis whatever 123, and that's how I found the names for these. But there's also other events like Grand Hall Doors, right? Well, I wondered how this YouTuber was able to find the names of these, because so far I've just been repeating the names of stuff that he has for the most part, except for the trigger ones. Now, you can use the trigger ones, however, you will be very disappointed to find how few triggers you can find in the game using the tilde menu. So, what you really want to do is find the actual events basically inside the code. Now, apparently, this Harry Potter game runs on the Unreal Engine, so that means that you can like use Unreal Engine source editors or level editors in order to look at things. So I am not going to go much in detail here. As a matter of fact, so the editor that I have any experience with is Koops Level Editor. I will put his channel in the description. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem his download link is working, so you can try using that or some other level editor, but I'm just going to sort of nudge you in the right direction there. Believe me, look at this interface. I'm not going to tell you anything. If you want to know if you have got this to work and you want to know how to do this stuff, I would highly recommend this channel right here, Unworld. He will tell you all sorts of things that you can do in this. Now, this allows you, by the way, to like completely edit your entire own Harry Potter levels. Like, I've done a bit of this in my own Let's Play of Harry Potter, and it's a lot of work though, and I've really only scratched the surface in what's possible. But he has tutorials, so you can look at those if you want. Now, if you load up the level files for Harry Potter games, this works for like Harry Potter games 1, 2, and 3, by the way, not just Sorcerer's Stone. You can look at what's in the level. There's all sorts of things in these levels. You can see all the nodes for various objects, like where a bean has been placed down and all sorts of things. And the one thing that, getting back to the events, one of the things you can find is these switches which act as the events. So you double click on them, you go to their event, and you see it has like a tag name, and that is how you can find the names of these things. So you can see like Grand Hall doors. One other one I found, for example, here is the bridges switch. So in the Lumos challenge, you can go to the bridges and do that command. So anyway, the point of this advanced section is yes, you can like cause events and stuff if you want to like open doors or whatever in Harry Potter, and you can even create your own entire levels. So if you really want to go into things, then there's no limit for Harry Potter. But I am not an expert in any of that, so like I've had a lot of issues getting any of this stuff to work. You think you could just edit simple things in the already made levels and load them up in the regular Harry Potter game, but it doesn't actually like that. And also I've had trouble with like installing things, and I don't know, it's just a mess, and I don't want to deal with it, but if you want to, go ahead. That's all the information that I can provide on that, so maybe you find this useful, I don't know. But at least the beginning section was useful, so there you go. Anyway, bye.